All
How's
right.
everybody doing? This is another edition of Atheist Testimonials. Here today, we're with my buddy Sean. We met on the Facebook group Black Atheists, and we're gonna go ahead and explore. In this series, we explore how people became atheists from the Black lens. And Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Yes, I'm sorry if you hear background. They are working on the siding of my apartment complex.
Mm.
So it's a lot of banging going on. So I apologize, but I'm Sean McIntosh. I am from Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm 52 years old. I have been an out atheist since, I guess, around 35, 36 in that range.
All right, great. Good to meet you. Now, like you said that you have been an out atheist. Was there a time of your life that you weren't out? Like,
I think I started flirting with at least agnosticism around 12 or 13.
mhm,
The story of Job really bothered me
right,
because I couldn't understand how God, who is omnipotent, um, who is supposed to know everything,
mhm,
allowed himself to be goaded into a bet, basically, that Job, his faithful servant, would be faithful to him. And in the process, put Job through all these trials and tribulations. And just the thought of this all powerful, all knowing, all loving God uh, doing that to a faithful servant just made no sense to me. And I didn't see the purpose of that story. So that started my road of doubt.
mhm,
And it kind of flourished maybe in college because, college. And
mhm,
again, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. So Little Rock would be like a small suburb outside of Dallas or maybe Atlanta. So it's still the largest city in Arkansas. And it's purple because you have a mix of conservative and liberal attitudes here.
mhm.
But again, it's still in the South. And currently, our governor is Sarah Huckabee. So, yeah, let that marinate for a moment.
Yeah, I
Uh,
live in Florida, so yeah, I
you,
already know how that goes.
you understand? It's the South. So
It's
imagine being one black in the South, which I mean, being black in America is already difficult, but
yeah.
then being an atheist, because so many people of our community are very religious, almost hyper religious.
Mhm,
Um, and then here you are. I'm like one of the only atheists in my entire family.
mhm,
But so I didn't come out. I had doubt and I expressed those doubts. But I mean, even up till 18, maybe 20, I actually taught a vacation Bible school class.
mhm,
But I would sneak in liberal, progressive ideology in those classes. And I grew up Church of Christ. And if you're familiar with Church of Christ, they're like a very conservative Christian sect because they believe they're the only ones going to heaven.
mhm.
Communion every Sunday. There's no tithing. There's no instrumental music. Um, they say they go strictly with the Bible and how it's supposed to be done. So
Mhm.
that is the atmosphere in which I grew up in.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, because I actually that was actually part of my question, like what started that journey. So what was Job for you? For me, it was actually Noah. The Noah's Ark story made no sense, especially when I got to like probably I would say seventh grade when you first start to
Mhm.
learn about geography and first start to learn about how rivers and oceans and how all that works. You know what I mean? And I started saying this is not enough water for this. you know, I think that's when I started doubting. All right, so it's funny you said that you were raised in like you actually taught Bible studies at Bible school because I did the same thing. When I was growing up in church, I actually did the same thing because I'm the pastor's son. So of course people expected me to go through that path to do the same thing. And I would sneak in some things like, you can interpret it this way, you can interpret it that way. I used to sneak that little in because I had the same thing, those little doubts, But what happened with me is that people will notice that, especially my sisters, they will notice that, hey, you snuck in that this may not be a literal story, and they will confront me on that. Did that ever happen to you where they said that you're not saying this 100% is literal, like you're just kind of sneaking in things that you're not supposed to be?
Yes, I brought up allegory a lot, metaphors.
Mm-hmm.
One, literature and history are my two loves. So
Same.
I love to read, and I love studying, like, symbols and things like that. And I grew up a comic book fan, a fan of science fiction and fantasy. So being able to read into things and say, like, there's a lesson to be learned in this, just because it's not real. As I tell people, I said, I, I could learn something from Spider-Man. With great power comes
Mm-hmm.
responsibility.
Responsibility.
You know, that's a moral lesson. Is just as impactful to me as do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Mm-hmm.
So I would read those stories and tell the children, like, this is the point you're supposed to get out of it. Whether or not this happened or didn't happen, here's
Mm-hmm.
the lesson to learn. And a lot of the church members, of course, frowned upon that,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I had a big problem with certain things, like, oh, no, no, this is real. But then when you find a contradiction, like, well, you're taking out of context. And they said, well, if God is not the author of confusion, why is this book so confusing? I said, can
Mm-hmm.
we just admit that this book was written years after these events happened? This is the biggest game of telephone, you know, that's
Yes.
ever been played. I said, it's an oral tradition that was, then translated into Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek, Latin, English, and we're talking Old English, then
Mm-hmm.
finally into, what we speak now. I said, there's got to be some mistranslations and some confusion. And
Yeah.
it's okay, but do we really want to fight wars over this? Lose our friends and families?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, or even harm strangers because they take communion differently? I mean, if
Mm-hmm.
you look at Christianity, you can't find any cohesive, um, nature about when to take communion and how you take communion, or when to give and why you give.
Mm-hmm.
Each different sect or branch has reasons for it. And, you know, and all of them think they're right. So how do we know? you know, how do we
That.
know? Like, how do you know which one is right? So if you can't figure out yourself which one is right,
Mm-hmm.
why are we making this so much, part of our culture? And just do you. It's a personal belief.
Yeah.
It's
True.
a personal belief. And I don't have a problem. I'm not one of these. A lot of people think that I became atheist because I was angry about something. Or, no, I just realized it wasn't. Yeah, that's my biggest takeaway. Especially when my parents got sick.
Uh-huh.
It's like, well, you're just upset because your mom has Alzheimer's and you're upset. No, that has
No.
nothing to do with it. Alzheimer's is something that's genetic. Her father had Alzheimer's. I said, hell, I might get Alzheimer's. And it has nothing to do with God. It has all to do with genetics. That's just it. There's some things I can do to mitigate it, possibly,
Mhm.
but it's inevitable, like Thanos. you know,
Like
you
that.
know, you know. And
Hey,
shout
hey,
out to Ellie Harris. Ellie always says I remind him of Thanos. I don't know why. I am putting Ellie. I make Ellie think about a genocidal titan with purple skin, but
oh, okay.
apparently,
So if you remind people of Thanos, then we'll just tell everybody right now. Okay, he's the evil twin. He's the evil one. I said,
Yeah. I actually tell I need to tell Elle, I said, no, I'm probably more like Star Fox if I'm gonna be one of the
yeah,
those titans without the rapey vibes that Star
yeah,
Fox.
because you know Star Fox. Yeah,
Yeah, I was like, now looking back at the character, when I was 13, Star Fox seemed pretty cool.
mm.
Upon further review, it's like, who came up with
Mm,
this?
I don't know about Star Fox. Yeah, exactly.
I was like,
Oh,
but as far as the amorous, flirtatious side, yeah, that would be me. That would be
I mean, now, you did mention that people would say that you must be angry about something. I did go through that, and even now on my TikTok when I do these debate panels on
me.
believing Christianity and all that stuff, I will get uh the same type of accusation that I'm angry about something, or I got hurt by
Right,
something, and I will tell people all the time. Most of my fondest childhood memories were actually in church. Yeah, like going there for like Christmas pageants. Like
right.
even right now, getting that feeling of being inside the church and all the decorations and doing the pageant. We used to do something called Phantom of the Opera. We did the whole play. I was a
Oh
Phantom
wow.
one year. Yeah, I was a Phantom one year. Like it was wonderful memories. You know what I mean? So, but it's always just like, this stuff just may not be true. And I would always get asked, what caused that shift. And for me, it was like basically deconstructing, you know what I mean? Contradictions, everything like that. You know what I'm saying? And I think one of my go-to things would be like, I don't need it to be moral. I don't need it to love people. I don't need it for
Mhm.
moral guidance and direction. And it may not be true. Though those are all my reasons. So it's like, if it may not be true and I have no reason to believe it, why should I believe it? That's usually how I go through it with others. When folks ask you why do you not believe? What was something that you would say?
It's pretty much like you would say. It's like I don't see any logical reason why I would believe in a God.
Mhm.
And when people would ask me why am I an atheist, I would ask them, well, why are you an atheist? They said, well, what do you mean? I said, do you believe in Thor? No, Thor is not real. I said, okay, so Thor is not real.
Mhm.
Shango's not real. I said, and you've accepted that. I said, so think about me as a Pokemon master. I said, I'm an atheist. I've just denied them all. You
Yeah.
know, you're still hung up on one you just feel this connection to. Us,
Mhm.
and I went through my period of time where college, I went to a world religions class and I looked at Islam and I thought, well, maybe I should be an Islam. I mean,
Mhm.
go study Islam and be a Muslim. Because this was, I'm learning more about Malcolm X and the Black Muslims. And then I went to a temple, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. I don't really care for this either. This is just as oppressive. And then when you start understanding the role of the patriarchy within religion,
Mhm.
you know, um, and really when you actually study the Bible, the Quran, and read the Torah, and you just see how each kind of mixed and matched.
Pretty
And I
much.
thought, well, if you can take a little bit of each one and just kind of change it up depending on the society you live in and adapt it to your codes and mores, Bible's kind of like an etch a sketch. The Abrahamic religions, you can just kind of shape it as to what you mean. And I
Mhm.
noticed that each one of those religions seem to have this need to justify that there was a
Mhm.
chosen, people. And it's like, so God's going to create this entire universe and just choose this particular group as special. And it's always the group that's in power.
Yeah.
So as I studied history and just social, geopolitical issues, economic issues, I noticed the people in power are always the one who control the religion.
They are.
So do I have a problem with people believing in a God? We all believe in something. Religion is really just a way to explain the universe.
Mhm.
This is what ancient men needed to do. Why is there thunder? Well, Thor is traveling across the sky in his goat-drawn chariot, and, with his hammer. And so this is, or Shango drank this magic potion, and that's why he's got the axe and the drums, and boom, we have thunder. And
Yeah.
you get older, and society grows and advances. You find that there's scientific reasons why
Mhm.
we have lightning. Why you say like the flow of the river and
Mhm.
how the flood would probably be impossible just based on what we know. But to somebody in ancient times, I mean, if we went back with a cell phone right now, we're able to make it work.
Magic.
That would be magic. I mean, if we
Mm.
would describe to 5-year-old us, the fact that we can talk to somebody in another state, even in another country, with this device held in our hand, you'll be like, what sorcery is this?
Yeah.
So I just think there's a lot of things, religion just helped explain the natural world. And as we progressed, we learned differently. So it's not that I think religion is, I just think I don't want to say religion is useless.
Mhm.
I don't like to insult people who are religious unless their religious belief is really just a justification for their bigotry and hatred.
Mhm.
And then it's like, screw those people.
Yeah.
But
Exactly.
there are some people who just need something. They want to believe in something that helps get them through the day. And if that keeps them from climbing on top of a tower and taking an AR-15 and taking folks out, okay. But the
Yeah.
scary thing is that same belief might make them climb up on top of a tower and feel justified.
Feel justified in doing it.
So,
Exactly.
yeah. So I don't know. Religion is kind of like that tool. It can be useful to some people in the right hands, but unfortunately, I think most people just use it to exploit, take advantage, or justify their bigotry.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to get into. We'll get into the political part in a little bit, but
Mhm.
the utility of religion, I do see that it was probably necessary in order for society to build, because people needed
Mhm.
to have a shared culture in order to,
Right.
build a not only build a cohesive society, but protect from invaders, et cetera, et cetera. So I
Mhm.
could see that, you know, but it seems that over time we can use laws and ethics and science in order to build a more cohesive society than this thing that has really no evidence behind it. And
Yeah.
uh that's the utility that kind of worries me about religion, because us as black people in Western society, we're in a more precarious position. Probably the people who are in a worse position than we are, especially in the United States and Canada, are Native Americans. They're probably the only
Right.
ones who are in a worse position than we are. But because we're in such a like bad position, um like religious grifts and cults and beliefs can really cause backwardness in us. And I've seen that a lot, where we want to push some things forward, but because of religious belief, we're seeing a lot of anti-vax stuff, a lot of right now we're seeing a lot of flat earth stuff. You know what I mean? And even if they don't use religion, it seems that a lot of black folks would replace religion with something else, like the zodiac stuff. Now, me, I think zodiac is fun, all that's good and well. It just all comes in to when you use it to discriminate and make major decisions. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So when it comes to that, that's really my concern when it comes to religion, like how it's used to kind of make black people backwards. Does that make sense?
No, I agree with you because when I look at some of the core tenets, like, okay, judge not lest ye be judged.
Hmm.
Treat people how you want to be treated. Is there
Hmm.
anything inherently wrong with that? No.
No.
You know, um, However, when you look historically how we were taught, if you grew up in a black church just like I did, and
Mhm.
one of the things I noticed that black people were taught to be meek, be
Yes.
meek, um, you know, the obedient slave thing was kind of drummed in. The meek shall inherit the earth, or the
Mhm.
kingdom of heaven and all. So, in other words, just sit back. Don't worry about this world. A better world is coming for you.
Yeah.
So, suffering is part of your existence. And now you see these prosperity gospels. Now there's
Yes.
this shift. God, it's like these ministers, and now it's like, well, God wants you to be rich. Just like that's why I'm rich. That's why I
Mhm.
have these homes, because God wants it for me and He wants it for you. So, you know, either we're taught to take the crap and BS, because that's what
Mhm.
we're supposed to do. And now it's moved on to a bigger grift that, I'm rich because God wants me to be rich. And maybe you're not, because maybe God doesn't want you to be rich,
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm with
grew up
you. I
in.
think,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no, no, go ahead. You were saying?
Yeah, yeah. I was saying I grew up in a Haitian Pentecostal church, right? And
Oh,
we
wow.
used to hear this. Yeah, we used to hear this all the time. One of the things that, like back when the earthquake happened, right? Back when the earthquake happened in Haiti.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh, God.
and I was planning on going back.
Hmm.
One of the things that they showed on CNN, and I think this is one that it really hit me to really start doubting what was happening, is that they started singing a song in Haitian Creole, right? And that song is called Tout bagay déjà bien, which means everything is already all right. It's a fun song to sing, Tout bagay
Hmm.
déjà bien. Oh no, it's a fun song. You know what I'm saying? I've invited, people from other cultures to my church and they love it. They love that song. But it's after the earthquake, and you're
Yeah.
telling me that everything is gonna be okay because Jesus got me. And we would see that attitude all the time. Like, if you would ask any Haitian, they would tell you that in church, you would hear the pastors, the deacons, the older members, they will say all the time, I don't need guns, I don't need insurance, I don't need to plan, I don't need to pack my bags because I have the blood of Jesus. They
Yeah.
always said that. And one thing I noticed is that when I spent about 2 or 3 years in Texas, we had to go to a white church.
Hmm.
I noticed a big difference, and I call this blood I'm gonna make a video about this. As a matter of fact, I call it
Hmm.
blood theology and David theology. Basically, in the black church, we're taught we're all okay because of the blood of Jesus, but in
Hmm.
the white church, they teach you are David and you need to slay your Goliath. And
Yes.
when and these two viewpoints causes way different actions, because
Right.
we would see that with a lot of black folks, they'll be like, I don't need to plan any of this, or I need to worry about any of this, or I can spiritualize my suffering because the blood of Jesus got me. But when it comes
Right.
to white folks, they're like, I'm suffering because this suffering is a Goliath and I need to slay it.
Right.
And
You're gonna
and it,
you're taught
exactly.
to solve your problem. And yeah,
Exactly.
so it's funny you mentioned that. Now, when I was like 5 or 6, I mean, my parents would go to church, but they didn't like regularly attend. It was something we might do. My father decided we were going to go to church, and we went to a church that was around the corner from us, and it was a predominantly white church. However, there
Mhm.
were some black members, but it was mostly white with a smattering of various ethnic groups, and I mean a smattering. Well, first thing I noticed was our first night there, church service was different than a black church.
Mhm.
The children were shuttered off to this area. They had a children's church in the evening
Mhm.
time, and so there were college students and older high school students, and they were doing a puppet show, and they would act out skits, and they would sing songs. Everything was happy. Like roll the gospel chariot along, and it was a lot. Surprisingly, it was a lot of call and response, which is kind of a black thing, but
It is.
they
It
just
is.
kind of, it was like being on the Bozo show or some kid show, back in the day. If you remember things like, I'm old, so I'll reference it, like the Banana Splits or something, or
Mhm.
those type shows. It was these puppet shows, song and dance acts, and as a kid, you kind of get hyped with that. I couldn't wait till I got old enough to where I could be involved. And they went to my parents and they said, "Hey, we're going to kidnap your two children, my sister, who's a year older than me." And they took us bowling. And we all went out bowling. We would then, like once a week, go over someone's house and have fellowship, and we'll read the Bible, study a scripture, and then we're playing games or just eating chips or kind of hanging out. So it was just fun. Well, then
Mhm.
my father decided he wanted us to go to a black church. So I want to say around 10, we went back to where my mother's family started a church. And because my dad wanted us to be around more black people. And he, because the white church, as much as they liked us, my father wasn't going to get a leadership position.
Mhm.
you
We
know?
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
we know.
you know what I mean? Oh, my mother was a great singer, but that's about it. So you know how it
Yeah.
is.
She ain't gonna be the head
They
leader
love
right.
yeah, they love our black bodies, but they don't really want our black voices or thoughts.
Exactly.
They don't want our black thoughts. Sing,
Exactly.
dance, lift this, do that, run this. But when you start thinking, that's when you become dangerous.
That's when you become
So
a problem.
dad moved us back to a black church, and that's when the difference hit me. I noticed the selection of songs were different. White churches, it was victory in Jesus, and all the songs were peppy. Even at the cross was just kind of this, like you forget this song is about Jesus literally dying on the
On the
cross.
gross. Yeah.
They sang it up tempo. Black churches, it was at the cross. Like Jesus, you felt suffering.
Hmm.
You know, there were not upbeat songs. Most of the songs were just like making you pine for this better world. But it really focused it in to me on the pain
Hmm.
and just the suffering and how not to get caught up in this world, but think about the other world. White churches were not like that. They were like,
No.
conk like you say, be more like David. It was like, be like Daniel in the lion den.
Hmm.
You know, it
Victory.
didn't tell you to lay down and be eight. It just says have faith in Jesus or have faith in God that He'll protect you. Yeah, you're going to go through the flames like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, but you're going to
Mhm.
come out of it ahead. But we didn't really talk about those scriptures. We didn't talk about David a lot. We talked about Job was very pushed on us, you know,
Yeah.
Noah,
Noah.
uh, the children of Israel and bondage and the 40 years of being out in the wilderness before finally making it to the promised land. And I thought this is by design. Even by 14, I realized something was different. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely want to go more into that later on, but yeah, the differences are stark, night and day. You know,
Mhm.
um, your family, when did they start noticing that you didn't believe in this anymore, or did you like come on and tell them, and did it ever like affect your relationship with them at all?
When I was a little boy, I asked, because I grew up Church of Christ, and Church of Christ truly believes that they're the only church and that everyone else is going to hell.
Hmm.
So my grandmother, who I thought was a great woman, my mom's mom, uh, I just thought she was a good, God fearing woman. And so I was like, well, Grandma, I want you to come to church with us because I don't want you to go to hell. I said, because they tell us at my church that if you're not Church of Christ, you're going to hell. And she just kind of laughed and thought it was cute. And the more I just sat and thought, well, why should my grandmother go to hell when she's doing everything right as far as like, living a pretty moral life? I said, the only difference between her church and my church is when we took communion and how we gave.
Pretty
You
much.
know, Church of Christ doesn't tithe. Church of Christ just gives as you prosper. Whereas most other churches, they believe in tithing. Well, when I started reading, I would say, well, tithing is more like tax, and the Jews did that. I
Hmm.
said that was really more of a Jewish custom. I said that was like us paying taxes. I said they
Right.
gave a tenth of everything they own once a year, not once a week. It was a tenth of what they
Once a
earn
year.
once a year. I said, so when you say pay your tithes and offering, I said, why are you tithing every week or once a week or every 2, 3 weeks? It's a once a year thing.
Mhm.
And no one could explain that. So I had so many questions, and I thought, why it was so odd. So by the time I got to be maybe in my 20s, I think my parents kind of picked up on it because I wasn't going to church. I had moved out,
Mhm.
and I would come infrequently. Like at first, it started, I would just come Sunday morning, not Sunday night,
Right.
and I wouldn't come on Wednesday night. I wasn't coming on revival. I'd make it Sunday. One,
Mhm.
because I knew my parents were probably gonna cook. One of them was gonna cook. My parents had gotten
Mhm.
divorced by then, but I knew I was gonna get a meal. So if I come to church, so I'm gonna be honest, I only went to church on Sunday because I knew I was gonna get it. It's the
Mhm.
South, man. You
Yeah,
know
man.
how
I'm
it
just
is.
trying to eat.
Like,
Yeah, I know how that go. Yeah. Get
yeah,
something to eat.
like,
You know?
yeah, you're like you 20, 23, 24 years old and you poor just giving out on your own.
Yeah,
Like, at
on
least
Sunday.
Sunday you was gonna get a plate and might be able to take
Yeah.
a to-go bag home. So
Yeah, exactly.
but even after that, the older I got, I'm like, this isn't even worth the meal. Like, I don't want to sit through this because I had questions. And, I'm one of those people that when people say, what do you think? I said, that is the worst thing you can ask me. I said, because if you're going to get mad at me, I'm just going to advise you. Just tell me what you want to hear.
Mhm.
And I'll look you in the eye, lie to you in your face, and tell you what you want to hear so I can go back to what I was doing in the first place and not have a conflict. I'm not saying that's the best way to do things, but it's like, don't ask me what I think, then get upset when I tell you. So one day, my parents, we had a Sunday meal, and it was like, it just kind of came up. And I said, well, I just have a hard time believing this is real. Like, and how do we know Church of Christ is the only one? Like,
Mhm.
is there a possibility that maybe all these different branches or sects or whatever you want to call them are just different ways to get to heaven?
Mhm.
I mean, there's different ways to get to Little Rock. You can fly in, you could drive in, you can take different interstate. It all depends on where you're coming from. I said, so if Little Rock was the destination, there are options to get here. I said, why can't heaven be the same? Well, my parents didn't have an answer for that. Well, you just need to believe. Okay. That, like, I said, this is like saying it's Greek to me. I don't have an answer, so it's Greek to me. I don't understand, which is
Mhm.
fine. And so I would tell my parents, look, if you don't know, you don't know. Just say, I don't know. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. But, and my dad got mad at me because I said, look, don't piss on my head, then tell me it's raining. I said, I'm cool with it. If you don't understand it, that's fine. Just this is what you believe. I choose not to believe it. And we just kind of went from there. And slowly but surely, by the time I was 35, I just flat out, because I used to tell people I was agnostic. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not sure, but I can't prove, and it's not important enough for me to approve, or whatever. Just okay. But by the time I was 35, I was married. I told my wife, who's now my ex-wife, I told her, I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be a deacon.
Yeah,
If you want a religious man, I'm not that guy.
I ain't
I'm
going.
not gonna be that guy. Actually, we were 32 when I told her before we got married, and she was okay with it because I had already kind of proven to her I was a decent person,
Mhm.
you know. And I never encouraged her not to go. In fact, I would say, hey, it's Sunday, you need to go to church. Because if you're gonna be a Christian, be it.
Be it,
Don't
yeah.
have stuff. Yeah, be it. Just be a Christian. If you need, I would even offer to study with her sometimes. But my family didn't, my parents didn't really trip
Mhm.
too hard. my father, before he died, was worried. One of the things he said to me before he passed was it because of my actions, the way I acted as a husband, because my
Mm,
father was a Rolling Stone.
mm.
He's like, was that? I said, no, it had nothing to do with you. I said, trust me. I was feeling this way at 12. It had nothing to do with you. So die easy, knowing you didn't cause me to be an atheist. you know, um,
I got you. And
and
and yeah, and you know the thing is, I would say is that that is a common story I see amongst us as Black folks when we say we're not part of the religion anymore. From what I've seen from people of other communities, they always say like their friends or their family will just not talk to them or abandon them. But with us, it doesn't seem the same. We don't do that. Our friends or family don't trip. They're like they may talk to you or argue with you a little bit, but then they're like, whatever. He's going through a phase. Like how my parents say that right now.
yeah,
They're like going through a
that's
phase.
yeah. Like it's funny. I used to joke. I said I didn't know which would be harder. You know, I said I'm glad I'm not gay. I said I think my parents might have been more upset if I told them I was gay than atheist.
Yeah. Mhm.
You know, and
Yeah,
that's
my
because I
parents would
had
have
a
kicked me out.
cousin.
Mhm.
Yeah, I said I've had family members who came out that said they were gay, and people were more. I tell them I'm atheist. They're like, he just got. One of my aunts said, that boy just read too much. I told y'all you let him read too much. All that book
What
learning.
does that mean, huh? Like, what
I,
is that?
I'm like, you do realize one of the books I read was the Bible,
What's
and
my
and it's funny because when people say, "What led you to atheism?" I said, honestly, the Bible.
Bible? I read it.
I read it. Like, I read it, and I said, yeah, the data didn't track. I said, then I noticed people cherry pick certain scriptures. Like my parents made me. I got in trouble one day. They made me write 100 times, "Children, obey your parents,"
Mhm,
um, which I did. But then I also read, "Fathers, provoke not your sons to wrath," and other scriptures in that same text.
mhm,
And so my father did something, and he's like, and I questioned him, and he's like, "You children, obey your parents, honor thy father and mother." And I was like, well, yeah, but fathers are not supposed to provoke their sons to wrath.
mhm.
And he's like, I said, in other words, you got some rules too, buddy. You don't
Yeah,
just get to do what you want because you're grown. In
you
fact,
got rules
I
too.
said, I said, as the head of the house, you supposed to be like Christ. And said, and what was Christ? He was a servant. He washed his disciples' feet. My feet are kind of rough right now. I could use some feet washing, sir. I said, and
Mhm.
Jesus fed people and clothed them. And I said, he famously died. So I'm just saying, as the head of the house, you are supposed to be like Christ is to the church. So are you ready to wash feet and sacrifice yourself for us? And my father looked at me and he turned to my mother. He said, I told you he was going to be the one. You said let them be able to think freely and express themselves. This is the one I told you would be the problem.
Oh man, I've heard something
I,
similar. I heard something so similar.
yeah.
Because like I would do sort of the same thing, but not only like that, but kind of question, like you said with Job and everything like that. I would be the one that was be picking up the part questioning it. And my dad said the same thing. He was like, "You were always the rebellious one." you know, you're always the rebellious one. So they knew that something was gonna happen to me. I was like, "You were always the rebellious one." But
Yep.
I am glad that just like I've been hearing that a lot. If I'm saying from our community at least, when we
Hmm.
do reveal that we don't believe in this thing anymore, like our network doesn't abandon us, which is
No.
amazing. They usually do that if you're part of the LGBT community, which is still bad. That's still terrible. Yeah, I mean that
Yeah.
shouldn't happen anymore. But it doesn't affect our family. But for me, whoa, we're good. All right,
Well,
cool.
sorry,
For me,
my phone failed.
no problem. No problem. Now, for me, it didn't affect my family life, but when it came to dating, it did affect that because I used to, as a as a people, we love us our Jesus,
Yep.
and black women,
Yes.
black women love them some
W-
pastors, you know.
Yep.
So it did affect that, and I was with a woman for about about 9 to 10 months, almost a year, and it did, we broke up for other reasons. She just wasn't ready for a serious relationship, but that was a sticking point in our relationship. And it was always one of those things of, being led spiritually and all this other stuff. So me, and for women that I did date when I started dating again, it was always, stuff like, since you don't believe, we can't go anywhere serious, but you can still come over every Saturday night, which kind of bothered me. Like, now as a young
I
person, I
know
was like, yeah,
exactly what
sure.
you mean. I get it. I get it. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come over Saturday night, but at the end of the day, I'm getting older. I do want that companionship. I do want a family and everything like that. That's just in my personal opinion. So it was always one of those things that bothered me. Did it ever like affect you in the dating life?
Yeah. Well, and again, um, in my 20s, I kept it hidden.
Hmm.
So it didn't affect me as much. Um, when I got married, it was fine. Uh, I ended up getting divorced for, a variety of different reasons. So in my 40s, and I tell everybody, because I'm 50, 51 now, I'll be 52 this year. Dating in your 40s is like going to the thrift store. You're just looking for the least damaged item. So I got on a dating profile and I was honest. I said, I'm looking for black women. I'm a non believer. I am a huge nerd. I like
Hmm.
Dungeons and Dragons, comic books, cartoons. I am a big kid who just handles adult responsibilities.
Hmm.
Keep it simple. The amount of white women who would hit up my profile and the amount of black women who love Jesus. And it's like you say, they want to like, well, I don't know if we can be serious. I mean, but like you said, we can hang out on the weekends and you can come over, I can come over. And it's
Hmm.
like, we do the adult thing. And then it's
Hmm.
like afterwards, like, so you're sure you don't want to go to church? I'm like, look, as great as you are in bed,
Hmm.
and as much as I love that thing you do with your mouth,
It's
it is not going to convert me. I don't
not
think
gonna
Jesus
convert
is
me.
in you. Yeah, your Jesus of vagina will not convert me. I don't know if this is what the Lord meant, when he says teach unto all these, sorry, I don't know if he meant conversion through sex. I'm not opposed. Like if you want to keep trying, I'm here for you. But I'm also getting older,
Hmm.
so we can only have so many sessions with your Jesus vagina before I'm ready to tap out. So, but
Hey,
yeah, it's like it was weird. It's like,
so
I
weird.
don't want to send you to hell. Like you realize we're fornicating. This is like one of the big no-nos.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
it's
I'm
ugly.
cool with it. I'm cool with it, but you keep talking about Jesus and
Mm, and
yeah, just like, are you sure?
you sure? Like, okay.
Yeah, like I don't want to
You,
lead you to hell. Like, what's gonna happen on the day of judgment? We sitting there like, me, my bad, sorry. I mean,
and you know what I call that? I need to put it on a shirt because everyone that I've talked about this have said the same thing. I call that the booty gospel because
the booty.
it's the booty gospel. I'm gonna put that on a shirt because it's like it's always we're gonna try to convert you through the sex or love or something. It's always
Yeah,
booty gospel. You know what I mean? I don't know if it happens to women because I haven't gotten to a woman yet, but it definitely happens to us as men. We
yeah.
definitely get hit with that all the time.
I would love to know if atheist women get that from Christian men or believers, just believers.
Just
Because
believers, yeah.
there are, yeah, and
I
it's
know a
so
lot of them.
odd.
It's very, very odd. The atheist women non-believers I've spoken to, they said that it happens with Muslims a lot, and that's really surprising. Like Muslims, for
You
real?
know what? No, no, that doesn't surprise me
It doesn't?
because no. Just because Christianity can be very patriarchal, but I
Uh,
think Islam looked at what Christianity is. You know what? Hold my beer. Yeah.
true. That is true.
They leaned
That is.
heavily into, and I'm not trying to not. This is not me being Islamophobic. I mean, because there are some trash people in
Mhm.
both sects. I mean,
Yeah.
just both beliefs. But yeah, I think I could see that, especially with a lot of Black Muslims, uh, lean heavily into that.
Mhm.
Like, I'm going to convert you through the power of my, pristine penis.
Yeah.
I
Basically.
could see that. You know, let
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
wash all over you, literally.
Yeah. Literally.
Just
Yeah, I do see
so.
that. And you mentioned like Nation of Islam before, because I do want to segue into that. Has your like non-belief ever guided like your like political outlook? Because I know with me, when I was a believer, I was very homophobic.
Oh
When I
yeah.
was a believer, but then when I started questioning more, even when I did believe, I was like, we shouldn't, hate these people or, give them no rights or whatever. I just don't believe they should, do this, and I'm gonna stay away from them. So I was still homophobic, but like when I started to question, I was like, why do I feel this way about these people? So that was an epiphany for me when I started questioning, why do I believe in this thing? I started questioning, why do I feel this way about these people who did not anything to me? Did the same kind of thing happen to you, or was it always you never had an issue with them?
Honestly, I think being in America, because that's the only place I've lived,
Mhm,
and growing up in a Christian household is like growing up in a house of smokers. There's no way the smoke is, even if you don't smoke, the
mhm,
smoke is still going to affect you because you're
mhm,
taking it in secondhand. I had an
mhm,
uncle who I believe was gay. My dad's brother, his older brother. Uncle Charles had a friend that they would come down from Detroit, and his friend was pretty wealthy and took care of him. I didn't know what sugar daddy was or anything like that, but I realized that my uncle was the sugar baby,
mhm,
and that man was his boyfriend. And when he
mhm,
passed, it was his special friend at the funeral. We didn't talk about it, but I love my uncle. My uncle gave me one of my favorite toys. He was always just a nice guy. So I had issues when they would talk about gay people, but that didn't stop me from making the gay jokes, you know, using gay slurs. One of my best roommates, I was a freshman in college, was a gay man.
mhm,
And he was my favorite roommate and actually a good friend, somebody I would consider a brother. And I almost got into a fight because somebody was talking trash about
mhm.
it. But at the same time, I would regularly tell gay jokes around him. I would say things like I might walk in the room, hey, what's up? You know,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I would say things like, cock smuggler and God, now, but we had a great conversation one day, and this is when it really hit me when he said he was a virgin. And I said, dude, how do you know you're gay if you've never been with a man? He turned and looked at me. He said, Sean, before you had sex with your girlfriend, how did you know you were straight? And all of a sudden, these math equations start floating around in my brain.
Yeah,
And I knew at 7, I knew I liked girls. There was
yeah, yeah. I
a
did.
girl up the street from me who was like 9 or 10. There was something about Janelle Tofree that I liked more than anybody else in the neighborhood. I wanted some Janelle Tofree. And that
Mhm.
shows you I'm 51 years old and I still remember Janelle Tofree. So yeah, I was like, he's right. I knew I liked Thelma on Good Times, Penny. There's I had a crush. So if I
Yeah.
knew at 7 that I like women, that I like girls, then obviously you have to be born this way,
Mhm.
because who would choose? seeing how gay people get treated, who in their right mind
It's gonna
would
choose that.
choose to be gay?
Yeah,
Who
people are
who
gonna
would
choose that.
choose to be transgender? Like I would not choose that. And so by rooming with a gay man, it didn't turn me gay by being around him and a lot of and his friends were friends with me. The cool thing about having a gay roommate, I got a chance to meet a lot more women.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah.
So to all my straight friends who are listening to this, all the straight listener men, I implore you, find you a gay male friend. It will
Hey,
open up a new world for you. I'm being serious. You will learn how to better groom yourself. And this might be stereotypical. I'm being tongue in cheek. So, but seriously, find a gay friend. Get a gay man as a friend. You'll be surprised how many women will flock to you. It's like that is the ultimate wingman.
yeah, it is.
In my 20s, it's like it was so weird. More women were drawn to me because of Leonard
Mm,
than being around a group of other guys.
other
Like that was
guys.
actually a detriment. So,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, it's they, 'cause, you know, they're viewed, usually I'm sorry to be typical or stereotypical, but they're viewed as safer a lot of times for women,
right.
so it's and not only that, just like you said, teach you how to groom. They were like my sneakers was dirty, and it was my gay friend who told me like, "Yo, those sneakers don't look good because it's that." And I thought like, I didn't know that,
Did he?
you know, no
Look,
clue.
most people now today is not a great representation because it's Saturday. I'm feeling lazy.
Mhm,
But you know, when a gay man, because I'll get hit on,
mhm.
and if a gay man hits on you, I tell all my friends, if a gay man hits on you, that means you look good. I
Yeah,
said, because they
yeah,
don't give out compliments either. You look good.
they don't.
I said,
Mhm,
you might want to go out. That's the night you need to go out. Whatever, go out that night. You
mhm.
are going to be able to command attention. If a gay man tells you look good, buddy, you are.
Yeah,
And gay
you're on
and
top
if a
shelf.
gay and yeah, and if a woman, if a women, I said, if a gay man tells you looking good that day, go to the club. Drinks are gonna be free for you that whole evening.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
looking fine, like because
Looking
again,
good.
most of the gay men that I'm cool with, that's who usually who I say, hey, what do you think of this? I don't know, Sean. For you, okay, thank you. I
Mhm.
appreciate that.
I
I
appreciate
appreciate
that.
that. Yeah,
I appreciate
but I
that. Let me
mean,
switch it up
you
a
know,
little bit.
yeah, but no, I think religion actually made me become just becoming an atheist or even agnostic made me question it because I never found anywhere in the Bible where Jesus said anything against homosexuality.
Yeah, same.
And even when people bring up Sodom and Gomorrah, I said, I think it's more because the men of Sodom and Gomorrah were more rude. I said there was a whole guest host relationship,
Mhm,
and the men were violating a guest host relationship. So it
mhm.
wasn't the fact that they were having wanting to have sex with the man, which but I mean, again, when they were trying, basically saying they were gonna grape them,
Yeah, assault them.
and then the fact that Lot even offered up his daughters for sexual assault as a I say nobody has a problem with these issues. There are some things that are fundamentally wrong with this whole story. I said,
Yeah,
but not once did it say that Sodom and Gomorrah was killed because of, the people were killed because of homosexuality. It was a myriad of things.
yeah,
And
very
then when
wrong.
people bring up Leviticus, you know, I said, well, that's the one scripture, and Jesus didn't say anything about it. I said, when Jesus came, he never brought up homosexuality. In fact, he basically said he's making a new covenant. So why are you still clinging on to the Old Testament? Like you still want to ban gay people, but you're okay with shrimp, you're okay with pork, you're okay with shaving, you're okay
Mhm.
with blended fabric. All these things are still bad according to Leviticus, but you only want to single out this one thing. So is this man's take or is this actually God's take? Like how much of this is cultural,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
So
That's what I started to realize as well. A lot of it is simply just cultural. I got
yeah,
2 last questions for you because I know we gotta get about your day, but You did say that you're into Dungeons and Dragons, right?
Yes, since 1984, maybe 83.
83. I've always wanted to get into that and be a dungeon master, but I need to know how it works because I'm the type of person that likes to write stories. So if I could
Okay.
write an entire adventure, I would love to do that, but I got to get more into that. You know,
Well,
so you. I'm
you
sorry, go ahead.
you can get in touch with me, and I will be more than. I actually have a group. We're called Blurred of the Realms.
Mhm.
We're on Discord, and it's a group of Gen X and millennials playing Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, we're all black. We're actually playing tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I
Cool.
can.
I'll check it out.
I'll see if I can send you a link if you have a Discord server or a
Yes, I do.
channel yourself. So, and if you ever want to learn how to play, you can feel free to hit me up. I DM myself. So, the best advice I can give you if you're a natural storyteller and you want to be a dungeon master, understand that you are not God. It's a collaborative effort.
Mhm.
You're the narrator, you tell the story, and the players make choices. You just give them options, you know. But it is like herding cats because you
Yeah,
might have this brilliant plot lined up,
mhm.
and then the characters do something totally batshit crazy, and you're just like, okay, this is where we're going. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
but
gonna
it's
have to go
fun.
ahead and freestyle now since you went that way. Gotcha. Okay, cool, cool. I'll
Yeah.
definitely do that because I've always felt that Black people need to be more in fantasy because when you look at African mythology and fantasy, it is amazing. It is amazing. Like
Oh,
we have a unicorn with two horns and a giraffe that's 90 feet tall. Amazing things.
oh, well, there's actually a channel. This guy, he says you want to play Dungeons and Dragons, but with African culture and mythology. He's on TikTok. If I find it, I'll send it to you in Messenger.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
yeah, if you want to learn how to play Dungeons and Dragons, I recommend going on D&D Beyond. You can sign up for that app, and you'll start off with the player's manual and I believe a dungeon master's manual. Just read on that. And if you're interested, again, I'll send you a link. I'll talk with the guys, send you a link. And if you want to even just listen to us tomorrow and kind of get a feel of what to do, uh, it's pretty cool. Like I said, we play with people from New York, Philadelphia, Texas. I'm in Arkansas. We had some members who were in Canada, all the way from, Kentucky, all over. We're all black, middle aged, and crazy, as we like to say.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm with you. I
Gotcha.
think black people should explore fantasy. If you were like me growing up, we're constantly taught to keep it real and not focus on the imaginary or the fantastic. But when
Mhm.
you look at white children, they're taught that to be, think about fantasy. I mean, we wouldn't be doing this right now if
Mhm.
it wasn't for somebody who watched Star Trek and a
True.
communicator.
Yeah.
But that's
Very.
what fantasy gives us. And on top of that, I mean, if you even look at Star Wars is just allegory for fighting fascism.
It is.
Star Trek is allegory for, multiculturalism and diversity.
It
That's why I
is.
laugh when people say they didn't realize Star Trek and Star Trek was woke. Like, you just aren't smart. Like,
There's
sorry.
literally an episode like in Star Trek. There's literally an episode in TNG where Riker falls in love with a someone from a species that's completely transgender. Like
Right? It's
it's
just like,
right there
and
in
this was
front of
in the
you.
90s. This was
Yeah,
the 90s. Like,
this was in the 90s. I was like, yo, it's right in front of you, bro. Like, what do you mean?
well, see, I grew up in that era where, we had that No Child Left Behind.
Mm.
Some of these kids should have been left behind.
Left behind. Yeah,
Just
they should have.
Yeah, they
They
should have
should
been left behind. Like, you know what? We need to put you back in the oven. You not all the way done yet. You might be a
yeah,
little
yeah.
raw on the inside.
Is oh, okay. I had one last thing before we wrap up, but I do want to appreciate you,
Okay.
Sean, for being here with me. As a black atheist, as we always said, we're a minority within a minority, And as
Mhm.
someone like me who's from the West Indies, we're basically illegal back in the Caribbean. It's very funny.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna say,
yeah, we're basically illegal. But one thing that said that in our society, our voices are not heard a lot. And as an example of what I mean is when you look at atheist content on YouTube and on TikTok and everything like that, when they try to explain, religions or atheist organizations, our perspective, for example, African religions are never barely ever mentioned.
no,
Black organizations for atheists are hardly ever mentioned. You know what I mean? And when you look at, these big, debates and philosophers and everything like that, they're all usually, the Richard Dawkins, the Matt Dillahunty's, people like that. No disrespect to those guys, but they don't speak from our perspective. We do have
no.
Mandisa Thomas, but she's not as high as someone like Matt Dillahunty. You see what I mean? So it's like
Hmm.
when it comes to that, I've always said, in my opinion, I think we should be a little bit more vocal. I do
Hmm.
agree that we should build this excuse me, a community. Now, there are two minds of thought when it comes to Black atheists. Basically, those who think we should be more vocal, participate in contents and debates, and those who feel that we should just create a safe space in the community and focus on that instead. I'm of a two mind thing. I think we could walk and chew gum. We can do both.
Yeah,
What do you think we should do as more of a community? Either debates, build a community, or walk and chew gum.
I think we should walk and chew gum. I'm with you. I'm about balance. I don't think we
Mhm,
should hide. Uh, there aren't many. I mean, I don't see any harm. I don't see any YouTube content creators or even on TikTok influencers or anything like that that are black and non-believers. Like maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson
mhm.
might be the closest, who might be prominent, but he doesn't really
He doesn't talk about it.
boldly talk about it, but he is, he's a non-believer.
Mhm,
Uh, but yeah, I do believe we should have a safe space. One of the things I have noticed with a lot of black atheist groups, there's this need to always want to invite others in, particularly white people. And I feel like, yeah, we need our space where we don't have to be viewed through a white lens.
mhm.
Um, but I do think we also need to be able to be out there and talk about how atheism affects us and how society affects us and how we view the world through a black atheist lens, you know.
Correct. I got you. Yeah, I completely agree with that, which is why I started Black Atheist Coalition Discord, because of I found out when I was on TikTok that there are a lot of more Black atheists, on
Mhm.
TikTok, and they do have a large presence, but just like you said, they don't have the prominence of someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Richard Dawkins. I've always
Mhm.
felt that I don't know if you heard of the Four Horsemen, right, of New Atheism. I've always
Mhm.
felt, but these are white straight men. I've always
Mhm.
felt that there should be a black version of that, and the fact that we would have a lot more, a diversity in this panel, not just black straight men, but
Mhm.
black people who are LGBTQ, black women,
Right.
things
Right.
like that. We I think we should have our own four horsemen, but it probably won't be a four horsemen. I think I'll call it the cookout. That's what I'll call it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, we do. We need the atheist cookout. And
Yeah.
you're like me. When I say I love black people, and I want black people everywhere to thrive, I don't mean just black men. I mean my
Mhm,
black LGBTQ plus. I mean, my black children, black women,
mhm,
straight, everybody. I mean, to a degree, I'm cool with you being a black conservative.
mhm. To
If
a
your
degree.
black conservative is not rooted in bigotry. If again now, if you want to believe in trickle down economics, I'll debate you on that. I mean, I'll debate you on it. I'll
Mhm,
talk about you why I think it's unnecessary. But if your conservatism is just really, I say, masking your bigotry, you know, then
that's
I
what
don't
happened.
consider that being conservative. Well, I want traditional values. Okay, well, that's fine. You can have those traditional values. Your beliefs, your belief in God, those laws are for you, not me. I'm not part of your belief system, so that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
You know, but yeah, I believe in all black voices being heard. Uh, but again, it goes with that balance. Nothing wrong with having an opinion, but just have an educated.
Oh, I've said this all the time. Nothing wrong with having opinions, and just like how we mentioned before the vax thing. I was like, listen, when COVID first came out and people were refusing, I was like, if you're going to refuse it for an educated reason. Basically, you're
Right.
immunocompromised, so you can't get it. Basically,
Right.
maybe the ingredients are you're allergic to ingredients, so you can't get it. I understand that. You feel what I'm saying? But if you're not gonna say I'm not gonna get it because it's gonna cook my sperm, like, come on, bro. Like,
Yeah. Well, and I think that's my big problem too. As black atheists, and and I wouldn't consider myself an intellectual. I'm
mm,
just a dude, you know, maybe that reads a little bit, but I'm not an expert. I know enough to know I don't know it all. But I
right.
feel like logical thinking, there's not enough logical thinking people, especially with our, complexion out
Mm-hmm.
there. Because I heard a guy say the other day something why we don't need to drink water. And have you ever had
Bro,
secondhand embarrassment? Now, this was the thing. People were sharing this, and I said, yo, we got to stop sharing these things.
yeah,
Even if we're trying, like even saying, like, well, no, we're trying to just expose the ignorance. I said, but we're exposing people to the ignorance. Like sometimes, as I say, when you're arguing with someone stupid from afar, no one can tell which one is ignorant.
yeah, exactly.
Who's the fool? Both of them over there yelling. And so that's why I'm careful about what I share on my feed
Mm,
because some things don't need highlight.
true.
I won't even copy and paste some of these dumb things I read, but ignorance is a money maker.
It is.
You know, uh, people, content creators know if I say something negative, I'm going to get the looks, I'm going to get the clicks. Uh,
Engagement. Mhm.
engage, exactly. It's about engagement under the guise that, well, I'm just trying to spread knowledge. Are you though?
Mm,
Like Donnie,
yeah.
you skip biology in third. I was with you. You skip biology. Now all of a sudden you know more than learned doctors.
Yeah, true. And you know what you said is it goes actually beyond science too. Like that's why I don't engage in diaspora wars anymore. The entire
No,
gender war, the gender war was already stupid. Then when we got
you
to the
right.
diaspora wars, where it's like Caribbeans versus African Americans versus Africans, I was like, what are y'all doing? What is this? What even is this? I don't,
Again, I'm gonna tell you what.
Heathers and all this other stuff, and I'm like, what is this? I don't know, man.
Last year, I got a compliment. I was at this African restaurant here in Little Rock, and I ordered a Bono stew.
Mhm.
And the lady was like, "Do
That's
you
good.
want beef in that?" And I said, "Do you mean cow leg?" She looked at me like, "You eat cow leg?" I said, "Ma'am, we're in Arkansas."
Mhm.
I said, "Yeah, we eat cow leg." She's like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Waste not one part of the animal. All of it's gonna be useful." I said, "Leg got meat. If I can eat neck bone, I can eat a cow leg." Like,
Mhm.
I said, "Is the hoof gonna be on there? Because I've never had the hoof, you know." And she was just surprised. So they brought my bowl out, gave me my fufu, and I pinched it off, and I'm just eating it. And they're pointing at me. So I'm like, "Did I do something wrong?" Lady walks up to me. She says, "Where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm from Little Rock." She says, "No, no, no. Where are you from?" I said, "Oh, well, I was born in Chicago." She says, "No, dear. Where are your people from?" I said, "Well, all my family's pretty much from Arkansas, the woods." She says, you're not Igbo?" If you could have seen the smile on my face, this woman asking me if I was Igbo, I took that as the highest compliment, all because I'm eating. She said, "I've just never seen American eat, African food the way we eat." I said, "Well, when I go to a Japanese restaurant, if chopsticks are in order, I use chopsticks." I said, I
Mhm.
try. I'm not always good. I said, but yeah. I said, nothing on this menu throws me off. I said, you got tripe, you got turkey neck, you got, I said, these are all things people in the South eat. I
Mhm.
said, even the way you stew your greens, this is, you just stew your greens longer than what we would stew. But the process is somewhat similar. I said, basically, we took what was we learned in Africa, got here and had to adapt it. But it's
That
essentially, I said, it's like what rock and roll is to blues.
Mhm.
Blues is the basis. Rock and roll just kind of grew out of it. I said, so American soul food or Southern food is just another offshoot, of African
African
cuisine. I
food.
said, so I don't see much difference. I said, now, except for the spice.
Mhm.
So, I would love to try Haitian dish because
Ooh, you love it.
I believe I would because one thing I was it griot? Is that what it griot? Am I saying it correctly?
Grill, yeah, yeah, grill.
Okay, so I want to try that. And the main reason is I feel like if we all could sit around the table and share a meal,
Mhm.
we'll realize we have more in common than not.
They're not exactly. I've always said the same thing. Yo, we have way more common than differences. Like, and this will be the last thing before we go. Like, I work in a hospital, right?
Oh,
And
good day.
yeah, and in the past month, I've met elderly women in their 80s, to sign them up for like Medicare and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I met one who was African American. I have another one who was Jamaican. Met another one who was Guyanese. Met another one who was Ghanaian and a Nigerian. All five of
Mm,
them, literally all five, resembled my grandmother. If I walked in, if my grandmother didn't pass away and I walked in, I would have been like, "Granny, what you doing here?" All five resemble my grandmother, like very very strong. Like I like like I tell you, if my grandmother didn't pass and I walked in there, I would have thought that would be my granny because they resembled her that strongly. You know what I mean? And it's like they're from all five different places, but we all look the same. And that's when
yep.
I realized this whole thing is stupid. Like there's no
Right.
reason to fight. No reason to fight our black women. No reason to fight our LGBTQ brothers and sisters. No reason to fight our brothers and sisters from across the globe. That fight is no reason. Not everybody will get along, but there's no reason for us to fight just because their life experience is different. There's no reason for
Well,
fight,
look, at the end of the day, you and I are just separated by one boat ride.
basically.
I
And I got
mean,
here
in
anyway.
all
And I was
honesty,
able to get here anyway. So what's the difference?
you know, at the
You
end
know?
of the day, you got dropped off. Your ancestors were dropped off at a different spot than mine, and that's it.
That's it.
So, whether you're Puerto Rican, you know, Cuban, Jamaican, our dungeon masters from Trinidad. So
Ah,
that was
cool.
cool. Yeah. So, we get a little bit of everything. And I love it when he brings a little bit of that culture into the game.
Mhm.
So, kind of back to the D&D thing, if you do a Dungeons and Dragons, please incorporate some some Haitian,
Oh, definitely.
culture in there. And I've had an idea about that,
Oh,
you know.
definitely. I definitely want to bring Baron Samdi, Papa Legba,
Oh
Erzuli.
yeah,
Yeah, Erzuli is actually a spirit who has she could be masculine or feminine, and she could be male or
right.
female. She's actually transgender
Yeah.
and homosexual. Is amazing. It's
What was
amazing.
it's funny when people talk about that how it's an agenda. I said, dude, in Africa there are several gods and spirits who are transgendered and in indigenous culture. Here in
Mhm.
America, several indigenous, spirits are they call them two spirits,
Two
man
spirit
and
people.
woman. Yeah.
Mhm.
So and you would like this. We have the game I dungeon master is set in the Gothic South. So
Mhm.
it's like the South, but we don't really rely a lot on racism, but we use Southern folklore as the base,
Mhm.
particularly Black Southern folklore. So the gods that we use are High John the Conqueror, John Henry, Bear Rabbit,
Love it.
Annie Christmas, even Lord Harriet Tubman. I named her the Chain Breaker.
Love it.
That's her name, and so you know, and if you look at the various different religions throughout the diaspora, there's so many commonalities. Even the way we approach Christianity still has that African influence with the call
It
and
does.
response, you know,
The Holy Spirit thing that came
the
from us
Holy
too.
Spirit. That's why Christianity was so easy for us to adapt to. It's like, oh,
This is
you
what we was doing
mean
anyway.
one God, there's two other people, so there's three of them, the Trinity. We got that. Like this,
We got that. Yeah,
yeah. We
exactly.
just adapted. Shango becomes Saint Bartholomew because he's over gunpowder.
Mm-hmm.
you know. Uh, so yeah, I'm with you, man. I hate the diaspora wars. I hate the gender. I even hate the generational wars.
That happens too, which is really weird. That's like, yo, these are like our fathers, uncles, and older brothers. Like, what are we fighting
When
about?
did we start hating elderly people? And I'm not saying elderly people can't be. Anybody can be jerks. Okay,
Yeah, of course.
like just because you're in your 20s doesn't mean that you got all the answers and figured it out,
Hmm.
sir, ma'am. You have only been an adult maybe for 5 years now. You have just been on this earth for 20 years, and for five of them, maybe you might have been an adult.
Yeah,
Relax. You are just learning how to walk. I'm not saying I haven't figured out it. I'm 51. So chill.
yeah.
you know.
Give it a second. I've always told young people this every time. Like I meet a lot of young people who are like in their teenage years, right? And I always say
Mhm,
this: the person you are at 17 is not going to be the
mhm.
person you are at 27, and the
Oh
person
God.
you are at
Thank God I'm not.
27, yeah, and the person you are at 27 is never going to be the person you are at 37. You're going to
No.
change all the time. And if you're
Yeah.
still the same way from 17 to 37, you never actually grew. You never actually matured
No.
because you will
No. In fact,
change.
I tell everybody, they say you get more conservative as you get older.
Mhm.
Oh my God. I said, by the time I'm 60, I'm probably going to be a radical, you know, communist or something. I mean,
Yeah, same. Same.
I'm,
No, no, same.
yeah, it's like, no, I get more liberal with each year.
Mhm. It's just like that song, slide to the left each year.
Yes, that's
Slide
me.
to the
Slide to the right.
each year slide to the left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's like, yo, this capitalism thing is it's kind of
Yeah.
bullshit. You know?
Yeah. I'm like, I've been working hard my whole life, and that's all I've been doing, working hard.
Yeah,
I ain't got
exactly.
shit out of it. Like,
Out of it,
maybe
man.
this hard work bullshit is not what it's meant to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
Maybe
we
there
need
should
to think
be
about this.
think about this some more time. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Sean, listen, I do appreciate you. It's been a great conversation. I do appreciate this is gonna go up
Appreciate it,
probably
man.
tomorrow. And
Okay.
if you have any last words, anything that you would like to promote, go ahead and tell the people.
Okay. I don't really have anything big like social media, but you can check out if you are interested in Dungeons and Dragons and Black people playing fantasy or learning about that. You can follow our TikTok page, Blurred of the Realms. You can also follow us on Discord under Blurs of the Realm. Uh, if you're interested in my story, hit me up on Facebook through Messenger, Sean McIntosh. If you see a cartoon picture in the profile, that's me. uh yeah, that's it, man. Just and I live my life with that great philosophy. I know enough to know that I don't know it all.
There you go. All right, Sean. I do appreciate you, and we will talk again. All right. We'll see you later.
Hey, I appreciate it, man, and I'll send you that link to our game. Okay.
For sure. And I'll send you the link to the Black Coalition Discord. All right.
All right, appreciate it.
No problem. Y'all have a good one.
Be peace.